You are not underpaid because your job is unfair, your boss doesn't recognize you, or the economy is broken. You are underpaid because right now, your daily habits are perfectly designed to keep your income exactly where it is. And the most dangerous part is that you don't even notice them because they feel normal, they feel justified, and they feel like just the way things are. But what if that normal is the very thing trapping you? This is where most people immediately resist the idea because it's uncomfortable to accept that something so personal and internal could be responsible for something as external as money. But if you pause for a moment and really look around, you start to notice a pattern that doesn't make sense under the traditional explanation. There are people with less experience, less technical skill, and sometimes even less effort who consistently earn more, grow faster, and position themselves in opportunities that others never even see. So the question becomes unavoidable. If effort and knowledge are not enough, then what is actually controlling the difference? This exact question is what led Napoleon Hill to spend over 2 decades studying individuals who had already achieved extraordinary financial success, not to understand what they did occasionally, but to understand how they thought and behaved consistently. And what he found challenges one of the most deeply rooted beliefs about money, which is the idea that income is a direct reward for hard work. According to Hill, income is not a reward for effort, but a reflection of value, and more importantly, a reflection of how that value is structured, perceived, and expressed through your daily patterns. Now here is where the first real shift begins to happen, because if your income is tied to value, then the natural assumption would be that increasing your skills should automatically increase your income. But if that were completely true, then highly skilled individuals would never struggle financially. And we know that this is not reality. So something else must be interfering between your potential value and your actual income. And that something is not external. It is internal, subtle, and deeply embedded in your behavior. So let's push this further, because this is where it gets uncomfortable in a way that most people never fully confront. What if your income is not limited by what you know, but by what you repeatedly tolerate, accept, and reinforce through your habits? What if every time you hesitate to position yourself with confidence, every time you undervalue your time, every time you delay a decision that could move you forward, you are not just making a small mistake, but reinforcing a pattern that tells the world exactly how much you are worth? And if that is true, then we are no longer talking about money as something external that you chase, but as something that responds to the identity you project consistently over time, which leads to a deeper and more precise question. If income responds to identity, then what exactly builds that identity in the first place? Most people will say beliefs, mindset, or self-confidence. And while those are part of the equation, they are not the full picture, because beliefs alone do not create results. What actually builds identity is repetition, specifically the repetition of behaviors that align with a certain standard. Over time, those repeated behaviors form habits, and those habits create a system. And that system produces consistent outcomes, whether you are aware of it or not. Now notice what this implies, because this is where another psychological loop opens. If your current income is the result of a system of habits, then your life is not random, it is structured. But if it is structured, then it is also predictable. And if it is predictable, then it can be redesigned. So the real question is no longer, why am I not earning more? But what system am I currently running that keeps producing the same result over and over again? This is where most people make a critical mistake, because they try to change outcomes without changing the system. They look for better opportunities, higher paying jobs, or new strategies, but they carry the same patterns into those new environments. And as a result, they recreate the same financial reality in a different place. It feels like progress at first, but over time, the pattern reasserts itself, and they end up exactly where they started, just with a different context. So now we are forced into a deeper level of awareness, because if changing your environment is not enough, then the real leverage must come from changing the patterns that operate within you. But this leads to another question that most people never ask, which is, why are these patterns so difficult to change, even when we become aware of them? The answer is subtle, but extremely important. These patterns are not just habits of action, they are habits of identity. They are tied to what feels normal to you, and anything outside of that range creates internal resistance. This is why some people receive opportunities and hesitate, why they undercharge even when they know they could ask for more, and why they remain in situations that no longer serve them. It is not because they lack ability, but because their internal standard has not expanded yet. This introduces the concept of an income identity, which is essentially the range of income that feels natural and acceptable to you at a subconscious level. And here is where things become even more interesting, because your habits are constantly reinforcing that range. Every small decision, every reaction, every way you handle pressure or opportunity is either confirming your current level or pushing it higher. So now we arrive at a powerful and slightly uncomfortable realization. Your current habits are not neutral. They are actively maintaining your current income. They are not just part of your routine, they are part of a system that is working exactly as designed. And if that system is not producing the results you want, then the problem is not effort, and it is not opportunity, it is alignment. At this point, a new question naturally emerges, and this is where the real transformation begins to take shape. If your habits are maintaining your current level, then what kind of habits would be required to multiply your income? Not gradually, but significantly. What would a person who earns 3 times more than you do think, tolerate, prioritize, and execute differently on a daily basis? This is where most people expect complex answers, advanced strategies, or rare opportunities. But what Napoleon Hill discovered is almost counterintuitive. The difference is not in complexity, it is in consistency. It is in a specific set of simple but powerful habits that, when repeated over time, begin to shift how you are perceived, how you create value, and how you position yourself in the world. However, there is a reason why most people never adopt these habits, and it is not because they are difficult to understand. It is because they do not feel urgent, they do not produce immediate rewards, and in many cases, they feel uncomfortable at first because they require you to operate outside of what feels normal. And this is where the final loop of this section opens, because if the habits that can transform your income feel unnatural in the beginning, then how do you adopt them in a way that actually sticks, instead of falling back into old patterns? Because this is the difference between temporary motivation and real transformation. And that is exactly what we are about to break down next, as we move into the 8 specific habits that have the power not just to increase your income, but to fundamentally change the way money responds to you. If your income is being maintained by a system of habits that you rarely question, then the idea of tripling your salary stops sounding like a motivational slogan and starts to feel like a structural problem. Because now the challenge is no longer about doing more, but about becoming different in very specific and controlled ways. And this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves, because they try to add new behaviors on top of an identity that was never designed to sustain higher levels of income, which creates a constant internal conflict between what they want and what feels natural. This is exactly why Napoleon Hill emphasized that transformation does not begin with action, but with decision. Not a temporary decision driven by emotion, but a definitive internal shift where you stop negotiating with the patterns that have been limiting you. Because if you keep negotiating, you keep repeating. And if you keep repeating, you keep reinforcing the same financial reality, no matter how many new strategies you try to apply. So before we even break down the habits themselves, you need to understand something that most people overlook, which is that habits are not just behaviors, they are signals. Every habit you repeat is communicating something. not just to other people, but to yourself. It is reinforcing a standard. It is telling your mind what is acceptable, what is expected, and what level you are operating at. And over time, those signals compound into a clear identity that the world begins to respond to. Now, this creates an interesting tension because it means that even small habits, things that seem insignificant in isolation, are actually shaping how you are perceived and what opportunities become available to you. But if that is true, then it raises a deeper question. Which habits actually matter the most? And why do some habits seem to produce disproportionate results compared to others? This is where we begin to enter the territory of what could be called leverage habits, the ones that do not just improve your life slightly, but shift how value flows toward you. And the first of these habits is deceptively simple, but extremely rare in its true form: the habit of definitive purpose. Most people think they have goals, but what they actually have are preferences. They say they want more money, more freedom, more success, but they have not defined those desires with enough clarity or emotional intensity to create real movement. And without that clarity, their actions remain scattered, reactive, and inconsistent. What Hill observed is that individuals who multiply their income are not casually interested in success. They are decisively committed to a specific outcome, and that commitment reorganizes how they think, how they prioritize, and how they act. But here is where the loop deepens, because having a clear purpose is not enough. Many people define goals and still fail to achieve them. So what is missing? The answer leads to the second habit, the habit of controlled attention. Because once you define a clear objective, your environment immediately begins to compete for your focus. Distractions, opinions, short-term pleasures, and unnecessary obligations start pulling you away from the path. And if your attention is not disciplined, your purpose becomes diluted. This is why so many people start strong and then lose momentum. Not because their goal was wrong, but because their focus was not protected. Now think about this carefully, because it reveals something most people ignore. Your attention is not neutral. It is one of your most valuable economic assets. Where you place it determines what you learn, what you notice, and ultimately, how you create value. And if your attention is constantly fragmented, your ability to build anything meaningful, including higher income, becomes limited. So now we have two habits working together: purpose and attention. But even this combination is not enough to create exponential results, which leads us to the third habit, and this is where things start to become uncomfortable again. The habit of increasing your tolerance for discomfort. Because every level of higher income requires a higher threshold for uncertainty, pressure, and responsibility. It requires you to make decisions without complete information, to position yourself in situations where you can be judged, and to operate in environments where the stakes are higher. Most people avoid these situations instinctively, which is why they remain within the same financial range. They are not incapable of earning more. They are unwilling to consistently endure the discomfort that comes with it. Now here is where the loop tightens even more, because if discomfort is required for growth, then avoiding discomfort is not neutral. It is actively limiting your income. And once you realize this, a new question emerges. How do you train yourself to handle discomfort without constantly falling back into old patterns? This is where the fourth habit begins to take shape, the habit of deliberate self-positioning. This is the ability to place yourself in environments, conversations, and opportunities that align with higher levels of value, even when it feels unnatural at first. It means choosing proximity over comfort, choosing growth over familiarity, and choosing long-term positioning over short-term security. Because the truth is, your environment does not just influence you, it gradually defines what you see as possible. And if you remain in environments that reinforce your current level, then no matter how motivated you are, your growth will eventually plateau. But if you intentionally position yourself around higher standards, your behavior begins to adjust, often without you even realizing it. Now pause here for a moment, because by this point you might be starting to see a pattern, and this is exactly where I want your attention. None of these habits are about working harder in the traditional sense. They are about restructuring how you operate internally so that your external results begin to shift naturally. And this is also the moment where I want to bring you into the conversation, because if you are starting to recognize some of these patterns in your own life, if you can already identify habits that might be holding you back, or areas where you know you've been operating below your potential, then take a second and write it in the comments, not as a vague idea, but as something specific, because clarity is the first step toward changing any system. And if you want to keep going deeper into this kind of thinking and understand how these patterns actually translate into real financial growth, make sure you subscribe and like the video, because the next habits are where everything starts to connect in a way that most people never fully see. Now let's continue, because what we have covered so far creates the foundation, but it does not yet explain how value is actually multiplied in the real world, which brings us to the fifth habit, and this is where the concept becomes more strategic: the habit of value amplification. Most people focus on creating value, but very few focus on amplifying it. They do good work, they develop useful skills, but they fail to position, communicate, and scale that value in a way that the world can recognize and reward. And as a result, they remain underpaid, not because they lack ability, but because their value is not visible or leveraged. This leads to another critical question, because if value alone is not enough, then what determines whether that value translates into income? The answer lies in how effectively you can connect what you do to what the market actually needs and is willing to pay for. And more importantly, how well you can communicate that connection. Because in the end, income is not just about what you can do. It is about how clearly and convincingly you can demonstrate why it matters. And this is where everything begins to converge. Because now you are no longer just improving yourself in isolation. You are aligning your internal habits with external demand, which is the point where real financial growth becomes not just possible, but predictable. But we are not done yet, because the next habits are the ones that tie all of this together and push it to a level where the results are no longer incremental, but exponential. And this is where the real shift happens. By this point, something should be bothering you a little, not in a superficial way, but in a deeper and more precise way. Because if you followed everything carefully, you've probably started to realize that the problem was never a lack of effort, and it was never a lack of opportunity. It was a misalignment between the habits you repeat daily and the level of income you expect to reach. And once you see that clearly, you can't go back to thinking the same way. Because now every small action starts to feel like part of a larger system that is either keeping you where you are or pushing you forward. Now here is where everything begins to connect, because the habits we've been building are not isolated improvements. They are components of a single mechanism. And that mechanism is responsible for how you create, position, and multiply value in the real world. Purpose gives direction. Attention gives focus. Discomfort expands your capacity. Positioning changes your environment, and value amplification ensures that what you do is actually seen and rewarded. But even with all of this, there is still a missing layer. And this is where most people fall short, even when they understand the theory. Because understanding does not automatically translate into execution. And this opens one of the most important loops in this entire video. Because if you already know what to do, then why don't you do it consistently? And more importantly, what separates the people who execute from those who stay stuck in cycles of intention without action? This is where Napoleon Hill pointed to a principle that most people underestimate, which is the power of decision followed by persistence. Not temporary motivation, not short bursts of discipline, but a sustained pattern of action that continues even when the emotional state is no longer favorable. Because if your habits are the result of repetition, then breaking old patterns and installing new ones requires a level of consistency that most people are not used to maintaining. But here is the part that changes everything. And this is the real shift that ties all the previous ideas together. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits, which means that your salary is not a reflection of what you want. It is a reflection of what you repeatedly do, especially in moments where no one is watching, where there is no external pressure, and where your true standards reveal themselves. This is why two people can have the same goal and end up in completely different places, because one builds a system that supports that goal, while the other relies on intention and temporary effort. Now connect this back to everything we opened earlier, because this is where the loops start closing in a way that should feel almost inevitable. The reason your habits feel normal is because they are aligned with your current identity. The reason change feels uncomfortable is because it challenges that identity. And the reason most people fail to increase their income significantly is because they try to change results without fully stepping into a different version of themselves. So the real transformation is not about forcing yourself to act differently for a few days or weeks. It is about installing a new standard that becomes your default. And this is where the final habits come into play, because beyond purpose, focus, discomfort, positioning, and value amplification, there are two more layers that quietly determine whether everything else actually works or collapses over time. The habit of self-honesty. This is the ability to see your own patterns without distortion, without excuses, and without emotional protection. Because as long as you keep justifying your current behavior, you keep protecting the system that is producing your current results. And most people never fully break through because they are more committed to protecting their self-image than they are to changing their reality. And finally, the habit of long-term orientation. This is what allows all the other habits to compound, because none of these changes produce immediate, dramatic results. They operate quietly at first, below the surface, which makes it easy to doubt them and return to old patterns. But over time, they begin to shift how you think, how you decide, how you position yourself, and eventually, how the world responds to you. And this is the moment where everything becomes clear. Tripling your salary is not about finding a single opportunity, a better job, or a faster strategy. It is about becoming the type of person for whom that level of income is normal. Because once it becomes normal, your decisions change, your standards change, your environment changes, and as a result, your outcomes begin to follow. So now we return to the question that started this entire conversation, but this time it should feel different. What habits are currently controlling your income? And more importantly, which ones are you willing to change? Not temporarily, but permanently. Because at the end of the day, nothing external is stopping you from earning more in the way most people think. The real limitation is internal, structural, and repeated daily. And once you take responsibility for that, you also gain control over it. And if you're serious about changing your financial trajectory, there's a link in the description that connects directly to the next step, where you can go beyond understanding and start applying these principles in a structured way. Because now you already know something most people ignore for years. Your income is not fixed, it is trained. And the way you train it starts today.